Divorced men and women of Reddit, what was the final straw? She didn't want to be married or a mom anymore. She also wanted to see other people. I showed her the door, and she ran like a bat out of hell, left me and the kids. All I had to do to get custody was keep paying her cell phone bill and car payment. This was pretty much all she cared about. Too damn bad that was not part of the divorce agreement. I stopped paying the day after the divorce was final. Finding plane tickets and hotel reservations to go meet some dude she had been chatting with online. Turns out the guy wasn't the fishing boat owning Alaskan adventurer he claimed. He turned out to be a part-time theater ticket taker for a movie theater, living in his mom's basement. I was going to get yelled at no matter what I did the laundry, get yelled at for not folding the towels correctly, let her do the laundry, get yelled at for not doing the laundry. The final straw was I was sent to the grocery store for French cut green beans. They had French-style green beans and cut-style green beans. I spent more time than I care to admit scrutinizing the green bean aisle. I finally realized that green beans are 40 cents and I'm not taking an ass chewing over 40 cents. I bought both. My divorce was death by 1,000 paper cuts. The final straw was something a little different. I wanted to go to my local micro center and browse the afternoon away. She decided to go with me and sit in the car. As I'm wondering at the glory that is tech, I'm in the biop department looking at a motherboard. This couple in their 20s walks up to the CPU case, and the guy lays down this nerd stream about the latest AMD processor. She's listening, lets him finish his overview of thread counts, and proceeds to bust his balls about it. But it was so sweet, so caring. It was the cutest thing I'd ever seen. She didn't understand, but she loved him, and loved what a giant dork he was. It was in that moment I realized that I would never have that with the person I'm with, and even if I could find a way to get there with her, I don't want it. I had struggled for a few years with all the excuses of not getting out. Oddly enough, that exchange between strangers was what did it for me. When I talked to his girlfriend on the phone, and she didn't know he was married. I've related this story on Reddit before, but my ex and I had separated over her cheating, and while I was considering options, she shot the family dog. She didn't take the dog out back and give it a bowl of food and put it down. She was laying in the bed, looked over at the dog, and decided it needed to be dead, so she shot it right there in the bed next to her. After that, she took everything she could out of the house, but left the blood-stained mattress. She was 3 months pregnant and I was 5 months out to sea. After this thread, I'm going to go home and appreciate the lousy dinner she made for my ungrateful ass. Thanks, Reddit. She decided she loved her girlfriend, who was also married, more than she loved me and our new baby. She left for the girlfriend, who subsequently left her husband and kids too. Both families ended up divorced. Both women lost the kids. They broke up a few months later. Scott and Freud. I had just had my car repaired and repainted following his wrecking of the front end in a careless accident. He took it for a middle-of-the-night joyride with his pot supplier buddy. While I slept unawares, he managed to accomplish the following. 1. Double parked in front of known drug dealer's house. 2. Caught the attention of a cop in a clearly marked SUV. 3. Drove 2 miles with cop following with lights and siren on. 4. Finally noticed cop and engaged in high-speed chase. 5. Totaled my car by crashing through a cornfield and into a freaking tractor. 6. Ran from the scene leaving an injured drug buddy behind. 7. Concocted idiotic scheme whereby he would pretend to have been carjacked. 8. Stabbed self in the chest with a goddamn pocket knife to lend credence to said scheme. 9. Suffered collapsed lung requiring hospitalization, followed by arrest. 10. Did not get visited in either hospital or jail by soon-to-be ex-wife. I didn't give a damn what happened to him, but I cried like a baby over the loss of my car. I didn't even know I was getting a divorce. I received the divorce papers in the mail. My ex was in the Navy at the time, about to retire. Her last duty station was in Michigan. We had been in the DC area for about 12 years before the last transfer came. So I stayed in DC as our home was almost paid off, and after 3 years she would be back to settle here for good. Awesome. One of us would travel back and forth once a month. We had been together for about 10 years before we got married. About 3 months before her retirement, I get the papers from the state of Michigan. In 30 days you're divorced. Apparently she talked to a JAG officer about her retirement, and he suggested she divorce me so she wouldn't have to split her retirement check with me. I paid all the bills at the DC house, and most of the ones at the Michigan house. I didn't want to fight, so divorced we got. I did keep all of my stuff, house, car, motorcycle, and she didn't ask for any of my business. About 4 months later I get a call from her. I don't seem to have enough money to pay my bills. Lol. I told her not my problem. It felt really good. 4 years now, and I get a call every now and then of her telling me she misses me and loves me and she can't pay her bills. I love when she asks me for money. Best know I can give in life. I caught her emailing him real estate listings. They were apparently shopping online for a house together. Convincing our children to drink their own urine. He decided to practice urine therapy and I was disgusted, and started to prepare for divorce. But when he got the kids involved I immediately knew it was over. He got blind drunk at his birthday party, and was trying to start fights, etc. So I got him home. Had the presence of mind to hide the car keys in the dryer. He wanted to go back out, so tore the whole house apart looking for them. Threatened me with a kitchen knife when I wouldn't give up their location. So yeah, marriage. Good times. Lol. When she threatened divorce in a very sensitive argument, I paused, agreed, and stuck to it. Also, as to not be misleading, this threat coupled with the discussion we were having at the time was the final straw. This sort of threat had been used before. She had just started a big new career, and got it into her head she deserved an open marriage. We tested it for 3 days in which she had 3 new partners. She had zero empathy to the contrast in our individual capabilities to explore extramarital partners, and when I brought this up is when she snapped, "Let's just get a divorce, then." She told me she was pregnant with another man's baby. Pretty easy decision. There were 2 things that stuck in my mind I just couldn't get past, but it was a lot of different things. I guess these 2 were the nails in the coffin. 1. Birthday dinner for my father-in-law. 5 minutes before we are leaving for dinner my ex tells me, "Oh, dinner is just for our immediate family." I thought I was his family. It was very heartbreaking. 2. I spent a month caring for my dying grandmother, one of the most treasured people in my life. I was exhausted and devastated by the time she passed. I don't even remember the conversation, just his response of, "I really need your support right now. Your grandma's death really messed me up." I realized I was alone in my marriage, and that it wasn't ever going to change. I had to walk away for my own health and sanity. I was working night shift. She cheated on me with 5 men that she met on Tinder and freaking Craigslist. After I downloaded the contents of her phone I found she was talking to 18 and freaking 5. So yeah, divorced. She threw my laptop on the floor, which caused the screen to break. I took the laptop into the bedroom to inspect it. I brought it back out to show it to her. She accused me of breaking the screen. Wasn't the first thing of mine she broke, nor the first time she made a ridiculous accusation. When she gave me the divorce papers, I was done after that. Husband was out of town on a business trip. I had a surgery scheduled for the same time. Had the surgery, and there were complications. It was supposed to be a day surgery and I should have been home that evening. Ended up in the ICU for 2 days, and the hospital for 4 more. My friend called my now ex-husband, and told him that I almost died, and was in ICU, and he needed to come home. His reply, "Well, she didn't die so I'll be home when my business trip is over." After he got home and I got home from the hospital, he was nice enough to leave the hotel invoice on our dresser. A room with 2 occupants. While temporarily separated from my dad, my mom had to unexpectedly leave the city, and left my brother and I with her elder sister, super sweet lady with a heart of gold. My mom had tried to contact my father, but wasn't able to get a hold of him, and left a message at his work, and verbally told his parents. My dad was pissed that we weren't left in his care, and filed for divorce that week. He wanted a legal agreement that could be enforced in order to guarantee that he got the time with his kids that he felt he deserved. So his reason to file for divorce, despite my parents trying to work things out at the time, was that he thought a divorce would give him more time with his kids, and on his own terms. That wasn't the long or short-term outcome. The catch here is the reason my mom left town that week was in order to take care of my dad's sister and her kids. My aunt was suffering from depression, and her husband had to take a work trip, and was worried about leaving her alone with the kids. So my mom dropped everything, and went there. My dad knew all of this as it was communicated to his parents. My aunt attempted suicide while my mom was there, and luckily my mom was able to intervene and save her life. So my mom was saving my dad's sister's life while my dad was filing for divorce. This story has been corroborated by both my parents. I saw a crumpled up piece of paper on the floor. It was a letter to me she never intended to give me, a therapy tool, pouring out all our problems, and a few I didn't know about. The upside is once we talked about it, and realized neither of us wanted to be married anymore. The only feeling was a massive sense of relief all around. It was pretty amicable as far as divorces go. Edit. The cat had pulled the letter out of the trash can, and was batting it around on the floor when I saw it. More information, since you zoned in the cat being the important part of the story. That particular cat was a temporary house guest, and went home shortly after, but, here link 1 in description, a poor quality pic of him chilling with my dog. We do have a daughter, me, and the ex, not me, and the cat, and every decision we made was with her well-being in mind. The part I left out, because it needlessly complicates the story, is 4 years after the divorce, we get along so well that we are recohabitating as platonic roommates. So our daughter gets both parents in the same house again, and there are 3 cats, and a dog. When she refused to go back to marriage counseling because he makes me feel wicked because I won't stop seeing the other guy, there's pretty much nothing left to say. It wasn't the final straw, but it was the first time divorce was mentioned, and it was the first time we admitted openly that we both wanted out. We were playing a D&D type board game, and his character walked into a trapeze set, and took a massive amount of damage. He tried to institute his own version of take backsies, and when I refused because we were adults, and he was cheating, he knocked the game board over, and yelled, "That's it. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. I want a divorce." Sadly, we worked things out, and continued on through more miserable years until I eventually called it quits due to his online dating, and his controlling behavior. That game still has a special place in my heart, though. My mother-in-law left her husband after he bought her a compost bin for her birthday. Also, the compost bin was the last of a series of reminders that my mother-in-law and Phil had very different values in life. They are still good friends, and get together on Christmas etc. She filed for divorce, and then fled to another state. When my ex started threatening me, and physically assaulting me in front of my kid, he also threatened to kill me if I left, and I believed him. Fortunately, I suppose, he was also sleeping around, and found the perfect woman, so then he filed for divorce on the fast track, and actually gave me a pretty decent deal on the property settlement/custody agreement. When it finally hit me that the impact of killing myself would be the push needed for my mother to die too, that my cat would get sent back to a shelter, my 14-year-old dog would never have another forever family, and my mother's 2 cats would probably eat her body, and be put down for it. Up until that point I was willing to put up with being cheated on. To this date I've learned of 5 different women, the emotional manipulation, not being allowed to have friends, and developed a particularly rough eating disorder, but that was all happening to me. I wasn't all that important in my own head, but nobody gets to hurt my mom. I've since recovered from the self-harm and eating disorder, gained about 15 points, and I'm working towards another 5 by the end of the year, cut all contact, and got a divorce, and am in an amazing relationship with my childhood boyfriend, plus now I have a happy little family of 3 asshole cats, and my dog will be 17 soon. When she set me on fire, things were kind of rough right from the beginning. She went from always wanting to have sex, to wanting it, no, agreeing to it about once a week almost right after we got married. That wasn't so terrible, but simply a negative change most people would just deal with. The rest was like the frog who got slowly boiled to death. Things went south really fast when we tried to have a baby and I found out I was sterile. To make a long story short, she would berate me about my condition constantly, and threaten to leave me. Anytime we were about to try some new treatment, she'd say if this doesn't work, we're getting divorced. In fact, my infertility was not something to happen to me, it was instead something that happened to her. If you follow me, the day I came home from my urologist with my diagnosis, I told her, and started crying, and went to hug her, and she pushed me away, saying that we should probably just get divorced. Nonetheless I persisted, and we even tried marital therapy. I tried various treatments for my sterility, including something called a tease, which means they cut your sac open, cut your testicles open looking for sperm with a microscope. LSS. They found nothing. The recovery was painful, like being kicked in the balls for a week long. When I made that comparison, she said I feel like kicking you in the balls right now. Her family was just as bad. Her brother refused to speak or look at me. Her mother yelled at me that we should get an annulment. I should mention her parents are Bosnian immigrants, barely literate, but that is no excuse for being mean-spirited, and my ex and her brother were both educated, with master's degrees. Well, one day we were fighting, and it just hit me. I just decided I couldn't take any more. I thought maybe I'll just take you up on that divorce. So I waited until she left to work, and I got my clothes, and went to the bank to split our savings, and went off to restart my life. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed the sun shining in on my car that afternoon when I left. About 3 years later I met a wonderful woman who accepted my condition. We're married, and have an amazing baby daughter who was conceived by donor sperm. Getting a divorce was the best decision I ever made. I had to give her more than half of everything I had. But it was worth it. I wish I could get back the 3 years I wasted on her. Also, I tried to keep it brief, but since so many people are interested, and I have a personal best for points on this post, here are some other crazy details. Her parents were convinced that I tricked her, that I had known that I was sterile, but fooled her into thinking I had no such problem. Because after all, who would want to be with an infertile man? I sold her, and them, a lemon. At first she called them crazy, and told them to stop saying it. But at the end, once in a while she'd out loud entertain the possibility that they might be right about me. Also, she had this habit of pointing out oddball guys, and saying bet he's got sperm. For instance, she'd point out homeless guys on the street, and say it. Or we'd be watching the news, and there'd be a crime story with a photo or video of some scumbag, and she'd say it then. Also, since we talked about divorce all the time, she'd always say that she would take most of our savings, since she deserved it because, you know. So that's why when I packed up the car, my first stop was to her bank to take exactly half. My lawyer commended me on that move, and said it was the second smartest thing I did that day. I still am dealing with trust issues, and this is over 6 years ago. You think your entire life together is going great, just got a puppy, new car, and moving into an apartment we never dreamed we could get. She's finishing up classes at a 4-year college. We've been high school sweethearts since 9th grade, so over 7 years together. Not even 6 months into being married we go out to dinner, and all is going great. Not even 30 minutes into the meal, she starts to get very emotional, but won't say why. Concerned, and worried for my wife, I excuse us, and head home. Mind you, this entire time I had, and everyone else thought things were going incredibly well. I felt on top of the world with our lives. I just don't find you attractive anymore. When I walked down the aisle 6 months ago I kept repeating to myself, don't do it, but I couldn't let you down. There's someone at my work who just gives me the attention I need and I'm really attracted to him. We've spent some time together. Now this isn't one of those you didn't see the little things adding up or he's only telling one side of the story type situations. The rug and earth was ripped out from beneath me. Her family and friends all tried to talk to her, and her parents apologized profusely. No one had a clue or believed it at first. I crashed at a friend's place, and continued to try, and talk to her about it, and about seeing a counselor. She refused. I told her that both of us need to see someone together as well as individually. Still refused, and called me an asshole for suggesting it. In retrospect, it's the best thing that has happened to me. I was able to focus on myself and I met my current amazing wife and I couldn't imagine being with anyone else. And now we have started a family, and have a little girl. That fear of my entire world flipping upside down is still there, and those trust issues have taken so long to work through. He tried to kill my 8-month-old kitten by throwing it through a wall in our apartment. His reason: the little asshole wouldn't stop meowing. She didn't want to have to worry about coming home. She would sleep all day. We pulled up next to a truck one day, and the guy was just glaring at me. Then he peeled out, and ran the red light. I asked her, you know the guy? She replied, yeah. We worked together. Found out she was sleeping with this guy. I left soon after. She told me to take the kids because he, her new man, didn't want kids. I left with a 9-month-old, a 1-year-old, and a 5-year-old. That was 10 years ago. She killed herself last weekend. My oldest is so angry. My boy is heartbroken. He will never get to talk to her anymore. And my youngest, my precious little girl, is devastated. It's so hard to understand how someone can do anything that she has done, and I am completely lost. Finding a video of her with the guy she was having an affair with. Love how it's never their fault, and cheaters always refuse to take responsibility. She left her email logged in on my laptop, and we both use Gmail. He was also married, and he and his wife had a kid. I never said anything to her since my ex is incredibly vindictive, and didn't feel like dealing with the blowback as I had enough going on with the divorce. Can only imagine if that bombshell was dropped now. Looking back now, she did me a favor. I have a great life now. I decided to go to college, and get my degree. He refused to get a job to help. Fine, but at least keep the house up. Nope. Turns out I was expected to work 8 hours, then go to school for 8 more, then come home, and cook, clean, do his laundry, run him around town, and give him sexy time. I realized at that moment he didn't really give a damn about me the way a husband should. For about 3 months already he would only be home for 10 minutes after I got home from work, just long enough to say hi to me and our infant son before taking off to party with friends until God knows when. The final straw was when he thought it was acceptable to disappear for the entire weekend, and get mad at me when I went looking for him. He had a seizure disorder and schizophrenia, so when he went missing in the past, happened multiple times, I had to go looking for him to ensure he was safe. Oh, but F me for worrying. Good riddance. Physical and emotional abuse, loss of consortium, and finally the painful punch to the gut when you finally need your spouse for the first time in a decade, and find out she's not there for you at all, in any context. When one of my husband's many girlfriends actually came up to me, apologized, and said, "He told me that you knew about me, and that you had an open marriage." I was already planning on leaving him, because of the infidelities. She just made me move all that much faster. He married someone else while he was married to me. Final straw. She spent a week away with some guy from work, and it was something I should have questioned more if I genuinely loved her. When she returned, she basically said that she was in love with this guy, and that she would move to the spare room. It was perfectly amicable, we just exceeded our shelf life, so to speak. We both met someone else, and never looked back. My father died in Asia. Last minute I had to bolt to his funeral. Packing my bags, she lay there in bed, and said, "I feel like you're just going on vacation." This was really upsetting. After his funeral, Buddhist, where I had to clean his week-old black and blue zombie face with palms and coconut oil, watch him doused in gas from a jerry can, and get set on fire with fireworks from a watch, she called me, and started lighting me up about our credit card debt, and told me I shouldn't care so much because he was a crap father anyway. The next day I had to pick his bones out, put them in an urn, dress his ashes in clothes after shaping them into the shape of a body, and drop his ashes into a hole in a trash-ridden unmarked grave in a small jungle wood area. Carrying his ashes to the jungle for some reason gave me enough of an existential jolt to think, what the F am I doing? Took a year of deliberation, but I finally decided I deserved a more supportive partner. When he told me that we were too young when we met, 21, and that he never got to live a bachelor lifestyle, he wanted to take a break so that he could date around and get it out of his system, then we would get back together. This happened about a month after we got married. Lived together 9 years, married for 6 months. Marriage only lasted so long because he realized that he wasn't attracting the dime pieces he thought he would, and dragged his feet signing paperwork. Reading through thread. I love my level-headed, well-adjusted wife, and our non-toxic supportive partnership of a marriage. She wanted to move back to her home country. My visa was denied, and that was that. He got syphilis from a prostitute while I was working in the Arctic. I guess there were two straws for me. She was living in Mexico and I was in the US. We had been trying to make things work, but it was really just us trying to save a sinking ship with a pail. She told me she got a new dog, and that she needed money. I told her sure, but money was tight to begin with, so if she could just discuss any new acquisitions that would result in a recurring cost, it would help me out. I never wanted her to return the dog. She snapped and started arguing, so I just hung up. Straw 1. 5-month pass with only communication being texts telling me she needed money for school and rent. I go to a house fire fireman and dislocate my shoulder. After getting released from the hospital, I go to my mom's because I needed to shower and couldn't wash myself. So I'm standing there in my underwear, with a sling on as my mom bathes her 28-year-old son. It finally clicked. It shouldn't be my mom doing this. She did her job raising me already. If I need help, who else should be there but my wife? I made my mind up then and there that I was done. Before that second straw, I would have still gone back if she had contacted me and tried to convince me. That dislocated shoulder, ironically, saved me from further suffering. I think Pokemon Go was the final straw. We weren't married, but together for 8 years with a kid. He had trouble keeping a job, and hadn't had a full-time job in 9 months. He worked part-time, and lost his job, and had some bullcrap story. I think he was showing up late, and tired from staying up all night playing Pokemon Go downtown all night. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.